Hello everyone, this is Kean Walmsley from Autodesk in Switzerland. I'm here today talking to you from our office in Neuchâtel. Thank you for joining this Facecast. So today our topic is AutoCAD customization. So please do submit your questions via chat. I'll be getting the questions through chat, but also be talking to you about some general topics that I think you'll be interested in learning about. So a little bit about me. I work for the Autodesk Developer Network team at Autodesk. So I manage the team that provides support for developers and customers via ADN. Okay, we've had a request to turn the mic up, so I have to see whether that's something that I can do here. Okay, let's see if that works. Is that better? Okay, I'll try and get rid of that. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, how's that? Can you hear me better? Great. So yes, so I manage the team that provides support via ADN, and then during my spare time, if you like, I write a blog about developing with AutoCAD, so customizing and developing applications for AutoCAD. So we'll take a look at that later on. So I've got three main topics that I want to talk to you today. So I wanted to kind of split it into a few different categories in terms of customization. So at the very basic level, we'll take a quick look at kind of UI customization. We won't go into great depth there, but talk a little bit about what you can do there to really just sort of simplify access to commands. At the second level, I'll talk a bit more about sort of more customization by installing applications that do additional things for you, that sort of tailor your product, and we'll have a quick look at the Exchange store and the apps that are available there, and also at the plugins of the month that are available on Autodesk Labs. So there's a number of applications that AutoCAD users will find useful there. And then we can go on, if we have some time, to talk about actual sort of developing your own applications. What are the best development environments to do that for, and take a quick look at some samples that are there for you, and the resources that you have available. So please, keep on pinging. I'll try and keep an eye on chat, but there is somebody that's going to be helping pass questions through to me as well. I'll do my best to keep an eye on everything. Without any further ado, why don't we just go across to AutoCAD. I'll go ahead and launch AutoCAD 2012. So at the very basic level, I wanted to show you a few things that I think are useful to anybody working with AutoCAD. So the first thing that anybody will want to do customizing their interface inside AutoCAD is use the CUI command. So let's take a quick look at that. You launch it. From here, you very much get access to all your user interface elements inside AutoCAD, and this is a very, there's a lot to this dialog, and there's a lot of information here, but one of the things that I find very useful, for example, is you can go through and for your ribbon you can add in new tabs. So here, for example, let's add a Facecast tab, and then from there we can probably drag across panels into that, and etc. etc. Now I'm not going to go through too much and do that right now because it is quite a complicated area, but I definitely recommend coming into the CUI command, clicking on the help here, finding out more about how to make use of the concepts behind here, the ribbon panels, ribbon tabs, contextual states, and you can get a lot of value from customizing your ribbon using the CUI editor. So I won't go into more depth at this stage around that, but there is another trick that I guess I've been using since I first started working with AutoCAD, and that's working with something called the PGP file, and this really allows you to customize AutoCAD, not so much at the UI level in terms of the ribbons and toolbars that you have available, but just to enable commands to be typed in much more quickly. So I right now, yes, you have command complete inside AutoCAD, which is great, but for certain commands that I use a lot, it's nice to have little, you know, shortcuts in order to launch them quickly. So one command that I'm using all the time, for example, is netload. And right now, I can type in netload, and sure enough, it comes up. But what I'd really like is a little a little shortcut. So when I type NL, it comes up instead. Now at the moment, if you look and you type NL, nothing will come up. But in order to sort of quickly enable that, I'm going to launch the standard Windows Explorer. From Explorer, you can go to just type in %appdata%, and that will actually take you by default to your roaming profile data, and this is where you can you can get at the support files such as the PGP file. So if you click down through Autodesk, AutoCAD 2012, R18.2, ENU, and then support, so you can see that whole path in there. What we can do is come down to the PGP file, and if you sort of launch the PGP file, now in here you have a lot of command aliases that are basically set up that allow you to customize the way AutoCAD commands are launched. So there's a number of standard aliases that are built in here, but what you can go is scroll right down to the bottom, and this is where you can add in your own user aliases. So here I'll just type in NL, and then I want it to launch the netload command. So we can save this, go back across to AutoCAD, and then use something called reinit. I can't see. Okay, reinit. And then from here, if we select PGP file, that'll reload the data in the PGP file and enable my netload command just from using the NL shortcut. So it's a simple trick, but it can be very effective, and you know, I've found over the years I use the command line a lot, and I know a lot of other AutoCAD users do as well. So that one thing certainly saves me a lot of time. Okay, so why don't I'm just going to quickly go over and check on the chat window to see how things are going there. You know, there's all right. So I'm not. I think we're going to press on for now. So let's bring AutoCAD back up and talk about a few type. So that's all. I guess where I want to get started in terms of UI customization. You know, in terms of adding new command shortcuts, and then also using the CUI editor. The really, you know, the CUI topic is a big one. I do recommend you go ahead and spend time looking at that. So let's now go across to Autodesk Exchange. So this is recently, I guess it was about a month ago now, the Apps tab for AutoCAD 2012 was enabled in Autodesk Exchange. So when you launch Exchange, and if you haven't got it set to come up at startup, then you can launch it using the button up there on the top right of the AutoCAD's application window. You can click across to apps, and then from here you'll find a number of or a wealth of applications that have been submitted by people, and this is members of the Autodesk Developer Network, but also, you know, external customers and other developers who aren't members of ADN who have submitted. You don't have to be a member of ADN to submit your own application here. So what happens when it gets submitted is my team will review it, make sure that it integrates with AutoCAD in the appropriate ways, and we'll take a look at what that means in a little while. So let's take, for example, you know, so we've got you've got some applications down here, which are some standard little applications. A number of them you can see were I submitted, but they were previously plugins of the month on Autodesk Labs, and we'll take a look at that after this. But from here you can go ahead and quickly install applications that you think are appropriate for you, or you think will be useful. So let's take a look at this one. This is Facet Curve. As we click on Facet Curve, we can see that it's a free application. I can click on here to install it and select these license agreements, and then click that button. Now what will happen now is it'll go ahead download an installer for this facet curve application, and install the application. Give me the opportunity to review the documentation with the application, and once I've done that, which is an optional step anyway, you can see that the information on using this command is provided there. So we'll close facet curve, and we go along and we'll say okay. So I'll close the Autodesk Exchange, go along to the plugins tab, and we'll find that this and a number of other applications that have been added are now loaded and available inside the ribbon. So what I can do here, for example, let's create a spline, and what we'll do is we'll run this facet curve application on it. And so you can see it's got some default settings, which is not very granular. So one thing that we can do is sort of undo that and then change some settings first. My problem is I don't have very good visibility on my command line. I have some something there so let me just change settings, and in this case I should create polyline. Yes, we can then exit there. Erase original curve, no, that's fine. And okay, I have to do something quickly about this command line. You don't see it on the output, but I have a little window that's obscuring my command line at the bottom here, and it's a little bit distracting. In fact, I can't read what's on the command line. Okay, that's better. So here we'll go for mode instead. Number of segments, we'll change that. Instead of being 5, we'll change it to 20. And I think that's good enough. And then we just select the curve. And what happens then is essentially this command is going through and creating a faceted version of this curve that is actually pretty useful if you're doing something like CNC machining, something that needs to understand some numerical control application that needs line segments rather than complex curves such as splines and polylines. This can actually be quite useful to people. So it's a relatively simple application that we've posted on the store, and you can get it from there. Once it's actually installed, there's a few things that you'll find, and if we go across to that same folder, let's go back to App Data, Application Plugins. Now what we find in here is that these are where these applications are installed to, and this is using a technology called the Autoloader in AutoCAD 2012, which looks for plugins in this folder. So the one that we were looking at there, Facet Curve, this is kind of a package format that has folders for the various DLLs that actually get loaded automatically into AutoCAD in this case. Oops. But what is interesting is actually with these plugins that we're providing, we actually provide the source code as well. So if you're interested in understanding how these applications get are written, you can go ahead and take the source code, oops, and then load it into Visual Studio or Visual C# Express as well. It doesn't have to be a full version of Visual Studio Professional, for example, which is what I'm using here, and you can just take a look at the source code and then build the application yourself. So this is the source code that implements this facet curve application, and you can go ahead and extend that to your heart's content. So that I think is something that's quite useful for you to take a look at, and that brings us really to the next topic, if you like, the next subtopic, which is so we talked about simple UI customization, PGP files, CUI files, or the CUI command. We talked a little bit about custom apps, whether these are apps on Exchange or what I'm going to talk about now, which is the plugins of the month, and that then takes us on more into the realm of developing your own plugins. So let's go ahead and launch Explorer and go to Labs. Okay, that's our internal intranet, in case you're interested in taking a look at that while I'm loading this. So on the Labs, oh, that's the wrong one. So let me go to the main Labs page, which is a good place to start. And if you go to Technology Previews and then scroll down to Plugin of the Month, then what you'll find here is a number of plugins provided by the developer network. So this is members of my team who have written these plugins, or they've been provided by members of the developer network itself, so external developers. And then we've hosted these applications with full source code on Autodesk Labs for you to download and take a look at. So this month the plugin is Point Linker for Inventor, and we're doing a lot of Inventor and Revit plugins this year. But if we actually go back to where we started, go across to the catalog, you'll see a number of plugins that have been posted for AutoCAD. So Average Point, which will take a number of points and return the average to the command line. You can insert QR codes inside AutoCAD. Draw order by layer. There's a new version of Script Pro that works with 64-bit operating systems, which wasn't the case for the prior Script Pro. There's some other tools as well that you'll find interesting, and every one of these comes with the full source code that can be used to rebuild it. So you can essentially, if you like the functionality, but you say, yeah, well, okay, I'd like it to do something a bit different, I'd like to extend it in this way, it's all there for you to do. And similarly, it also gives you confidence in the sense that if you have the source code, if you in future versions of AutoCAD you didn't have that same application ready, then you could in theory go ahead and rebuild it and make sure that it's working for your for future versions that haven't been supported by the existing code. So some of these you'll notice we're also on the App Store. I mean, we actually used a number of these plugins to create initial content for the App Store. So a number of them are on there. But and there, for example, Facet Curve, which is what we looked at just now. But I very much recommend taking a look at these plugins. We've been doing this initiative for we're in our third year now, nearly the end of our third year. So that means we have 30 plus plugins that you will find useful, and we're continuing with publishing them. So that's the first resource. One way is to learn by example. There's no doubt about it. Find something that you think works for you, take a look at the source code, and then extend it to meet your needs. The other place to look when you're doing development with AutoCAD is here we go. Develop AutoCAD. Autodesk.com. Develop AutoCAD. So, oh, I can't believe it. It's down. That shouldn't happen. Alright, great. It was very temporarily unavailable, I'm glad to say. So this is the AutoCAD Developer Center, and this is, if you like, the one-stop shop for all your development needs when it comes to programming with AutoCAD. And so here you'll find links to the development tools, so whether it's ObjectRX if you're a C++ developer, or for most of us who are not, there's resources there around using .NET or Visual Lisp. Samples and documentation. There's a number of tools that are available. This, I'd say, is the most interesting area here. So if you go down and you can really want to get started, take a look at this DevTV on the introduction to AutoCAD.NET programming. And a DevTV is essentially a Camtasia recording where a member of my team will spend some time preparing content, recording a session going through the basics of presentation with accompanying demos. And this is probably going to take some time to load here. So here, you've got a very good overview of AutoCAD, in this case from a developer, and working through that I think is very valuable. I think it's taking time to load because I'm streaming outwards and inwards at the same time, which is probably not a very good idea.
Hi there, my name's Fenton Webb.
So that one was delivered by Fenton Webb, who's based in our San Rafael office. So if you want something a bit more in-depth, we've actually just posted some a dev TV of AutoCAD.net training, and that's a set of 8 different lessons going through really from the beginning to end, and it's a lot more in-depth, and that will take you a lot further as well in sort of learning about .NET. And then of course, another resource, as I did mention briefly earlier, is the blog that I write on AutoCAD customization. So now this is going to be strange. I don't know if we're going to end up seeing ourselves. Oh wow, okay, pretty cool. So this is the blog. There's a great deal of content here. I blog for anything to do with AutoCAD development very often come across this blog, and I certainly do think that it will help the resource that you find useful. So that I'll close now. Come back across here. I'll check now the window to see where we're at. Okay, so there's a question there about where the so question on the App Store. So the App Store at the moment, is a very first. It's our our first attempt at this, in the sense of it. We're really starting now with AutoCAD 2012. I very much expect us to deliver stores for our vertical products and for other products beyond there, but we don't have a firm timeline in place yet. You won't find one for AutoCAD Map at the moment. That was one question that came in on the chat. Similarly, there was a question around the App Store for the Mac, or the Exchange store for the Mac. So we don't have one yet for the Mac version of AutoCAD, and again, to some degree, that's also something that we'll build as we focus on applications being made available for the Exchange, for the Mac version of AutoCAD. At the moment, we have APIs on the Mac for Lisp and Object-ARX, but which is a good starting place for some application development, but we have further to go there. Okay, so I don't see questions. I see a lot of questions, but it seems like the other people have been handling those very nicely. So can't see anything to dive in on right now. So I will, I could get into some specific questions that were submitted prior to this Facecast. One of the problems there is that they were quite in depth from a development perspective, so I don't want to get too heavy. Well, actually, let's just talk about one. So one of them in particular did come up, and this is related to developing for 64-bit systems with .NET. So natively, or when you develop an application using .NET, it will support 64-bit systems, but there are some cases where you do have to do something specific between 32-bit and 64-bit. So let's, and if you want to get a better list of information on that, I do recommend search on my blog. There's a session which goes into this in a lot more detail around the specifics, as well as a recorded dev TV session that you can access. So this is going back to when we first introduced the 64-bit version of AutoCAD with 2008 version. But there is also another, there's another trick that I haven't done a specific blog post about, but somebody did ask me about this in advance of this Facecast, so I think I'll go ahead and address that now. And this is, and the actual example that I used there. So in this case, I'm just searching for a particular string that I'm hopeful will bring up the right post. And this is so as I said, I will make this a separate post in due course. But there's something definitely useful in this particular piece of code. And what we'll do here is scroll down to the piece of code that's important. Now, very often with AutoCAD develop or with .NET development, you'll hit limitations where there are some things that you want to get access to that are part of the standard Windows API, so the Win32 API. So the way to do that is to use something called pinvoke or platform invoke, and that's using the DLL import statement inside C# or the declare statement inside VB.NET. So in this case, what we're doing is we're declaring a number of different functions. We've got a number of 32-bit functions, which are these ones here. And then we've actually, for the same functions, we've got 64-bit versions that we're declaring here. So there is a slight difference between the two. So what we've done is have a single function that you can call from within your code, and depending on the platform, it'll call the right version of this, p-invoked function, and this works very well. So the trick here is actually quite an interesting one. So a reliable way to tell whether you're on a 64-bit platform is to check the size of an integer, and in this case, an integer pointer, is the one we're checking the size of. And with this particular class, with int pointer, if the size is greater than 4, in this case it'll be 8, then it's going to be a 64-bit platform. Now, strictly speaking, I suppose when we're on 128-bit systems, if that ever happens, then this code will need to be reworked. But we're a ways off that, so I'm not too worried about it. So it'll call the 64-bit version if the size of an integer is greater than 4 bytes, which means it's 64 bytes. 64-bit means 8 bytes. It's 8 times 8, and then on 32-bit systems, an integer are going to be stored as 32 bits, which is 4 bytes. So in this way, we can just call a single function from our code, and it'll call through to the appropriate underlying pinvoke call. So I think that's a pretty effective technique, and it's one that I certainly am going to call out in a separate post in due course. So I am close to getting to the end of this Facecast. So I hope you've found it useful. I do recommend, just to recap what we've taken a look at today. So a few things to recap. So look at the the PGP file, which you can certainly access. As I mentioned, if you go out to Explorer, type in %appdata%, and then click down through the various folders, you'll get to your support folder where you can get your PGP file, edit that, and then use reinit back inside AutoCAD to reload the settings that you've changed. The CUI command to allow you to manipulate the ribbon, toolbars, and other sort of GUI, if you like, graphical user interface components inside AutoCAD. Very, very useful, and you can get a lot of headway from customizing AutoCAD in that way. External applications, go across to, if you're on base AutoCAD 2012, go check out the App Store or the Exchange Store, excuse me, for AutoCAD 2012, and do expect more of these in the future. We're certainly finding it to be a compelling way for customers to get access to interesting applications. And you'll see, again, it's driven a lot by ratings and votes. You have the top things that people have downloaded a lot. There's also, over time, as people rate applications and provide community feedback, I think that's going to be very useful. And then similarly, if you want to go across and actually sort of take on your own development work and extend the code that we provide, both from the Autodesk Labs plugin of the month initiative, or the apps that you download which have source code from the Exchange Store, please those are good starting points. But as you need to understand a bit more about what's going on beneath the hood, then the resources on both the AutoCAD Developer Center and on my blog through the interface should be helpful to you. And certainly do email me or post a comment if you'd like to see me cover a particular topic. If there's something that you're interested in, I'd be very happy to do that. Okay, well, with that, I would just like to say thank you very much for attending. I appreciate your interest in this topic and your patience, going through this session. Please, come and visit on my blog, and I'm very happy to interact with people. And also let me know, maybe via the Facebook page, if you've found this to be helpful. Okay, thank you very much.